Good evening and welcome to the programme that does to the news what certain Tory MPs do to your family. Elsewhere this week, London traffic is brought to a standstill as Roy Hattersley dials out for a pizza. After yet another member leaves the group, Bananarama hold auditions in Leicester Square. And as the first train rumbles through the Channel Tunnel, residents in Kent fear it may have been built too close to the surface. On Ian Hislop's team, a woman who was recently voted the sexiest voice on British television, which must have come as a bit of a blow to Derek Jameson, film critic and Sunday Times columnist Mariella Frostrup. And with Paul Merton, the man who, last time he was on the show, threw away a 12-point lead by holding a huge victory rally just before the final round. Leo Kinnock. So, eyes down, look in, and it's clickety-click, round one. Ian and Mariella, something of a dressing down for you.
Well, it's the homeless, obviously.
It's the homeless.
We've got
There's
that
another
far.
one, yeah.
Or one who will be very soon, perhaps.
Yeah.
I thought it was the Tory Attract a Millionaire to Britain scheme, that they get... they get free bed and board, and they get to meet the Prime Minister, which is probably why not many of them are taking up the offer.
It's a sad sight, isn't it? This mild man appealing
Ironic.
to the most basic instincts he can find. Bloody beggars on the streets, lock 'em up! Is that worth a vote?
Is it
Worth a slap round the face?
And you're the man to do it here.
Yeah.
Off you go.
Have a fight with him. Have a fight and get it on television.
Do you want to fight, Prime Minister? Well, I might, and I might not. I can't commit myself at this stage to a fight.
It's John Major's controversial assault on begging, for which he has been attacked from all sides. The Labour Party described him as small-minded, the Church said he was draconian, and a tramp said, "You're the phone." For their part, the press are claiming that some beggars are conning the public. One reporter in Sheffield followed a man who spent the whole day posing as a down-and-out before driving off in a £10,000 car, which the reporter hopes to have returned to him as soon as possible. Paul and Neil, a family affair for you.
He's given a lawnmower a scene to there, isn't he? I reckon he should get the father drunk and go for a full house.
What a bunch of slappers, honestly. Don't you think that when they flew in, thought, sad old cuckold and a couple of hard-faced slappers?
But it is the one thing that Bill Clinton and Alan Clark have in common. They both like flashing, don't they?
Well, I'm for old Clarky, you know. I mean, it takes a lot to make one sympathise with Alan Clark. But this pathetic lunatic judge, you know he wasn't allowed citizenship in South Africa because he's too right-wing for them. He's a member of the Monday Club over here. He disappears off to South Africa. 14 years later, he comes back because his wife and both daughters have had it away with Clark, saying, "I'm looking for justice." Bloody whites coming over here.
It's odd, actually, that we haven't actually mentioned the answer, but it is...
There is no answer.
There is no answer. It is,
Sterilisation, I don't know.
It is about Judge James Harkis, whose wife and daughters were all seduced by former Conservative Minister Alan Clark. Daughter Josephine described the ghastly ordeal. "All I got were a few minutes of sex. I remember him leaving, and I can remember feeling dirty. He made me feel like a dog. There was no tenderness, no love. He came round the next night, and I slept with him." Obviously, this was just to make sure it was as ghastly as she thought it was.
Alan Clark, first Tory MP who actually does believe in the family.
He was actually due to appear on this programme, but on second thoughts, he mysteriously dropped out, which is rather unlike him to pull out at the last minute. Ian and Mariella, some not quite so popular entertainment for you.
He hasn't had all them, has he?
There's nothing to do with Alan Clark.
Carlton.
Carlton?
We love Carlton. Sorry, I love Carlton.
Oh, my goodness, who's
and
that?
me. How fabulous.
In your
well,
pyjamas.
that is obviously... It's a very late-night programme. What do you want me to do? Dress up? It's ridiculous. That's obviously an example of the sort of quality programme that Carlton are now showing because they're embarrassed about the other programmes that they were reprimanded for by the ITC. And in fact, straight after they were reprimanded, they dragged my programme forward to 10:40 at night.
And now
Dragged
we're from our
forward.
When was
sponsors.
this programme on
Kicking
before?
and screaming 12:30 at night. It's now 10:40.
Right, that's prime time, is it?
Absolutely. You wouldn't know because you've never been on prime time, have you, honey?
Carlton actually came out lower than border television and teletext.
Why are you looking at me? I feel like I'm being blamed here for something.
No, heaven forfend. It is...
Good work.
Anyway, you got the 2 points.
You can't be blamed for your choice of employers, really, can you?
No, we all have to work. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah, you
what
work
are
for the
doing
Sunday
here?
Times as well, don't you?
Yes, I think,
Do what? In
think
fact,
we'll
what
have
I'd really
to-
like to do is pull out a copy now of the private eye version of my column, which is actually not funny at all, which is really sad.
I don't think there's much of an exclusive in Private Eye not being funny. I think
No, it is the severe criticism of GMTV and Carlton by the Independent Television Commission in their annual review of ITV companies. GMTV paid £34 million for TVAM's franchise, yet so far all they've done is to get rid of Mike Morris. £34 million not entirely wasted, then. Paul and Neil, God knows what the answer is to this one.
I don't know. Alan Clark has a family reunion. I don't know.
It's John Patton, loosely described as the Education Secretary. John Patton is in dispute, or has been in dispute, with the National Association of Head Teachers because he is having, as he described, a crackdown on those head teachers who are failing to comply with the law requiring a broad teaching of Christianity.
So these head teachers are refusing to have an assembly, is that
Yes.
right?
The only trouble is, if more than 10 of them got together, they get nicked for picketing. So it's, you know, it's devil in the deep blue sea, really, and it's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. Instead, heads want RE to draw on elements from various religions, so kids will be taught to love thy neighbour by Christians, to harm no living creature by Buddhists, and to seek out and destroy any novelists they disagree with by Muslim fundamentalists. Which divine inspiration brings this opening round to a merciful conclusion, and the good news is that the scores are as far apart from each other as the taste of Sainsbury's Cola is from Coca-Cola, both teams having an identical 4. So, time to put snobbery to one side as we go below stairs for a taste of Voikish tabloid life. Paul, a cunning slice of wordplay for you. If it splits, you're on a hiding to nothing.
Oh, this is the musical condom, isn't it? It's got a sort of little... Somebody's invented a musical condom. It's got a little microchip in the bottom of it. And if it splits, it suddenly plays a bit of music.
Isn't it a bit late once it's split?
Well, it gives you something to tap your feet to, I suppose. But the Beatles had a song, didn't they, years ago? Your Mother Should Know. That should be Alan Clark's condom, perhaps. Or You're Once, Twice, Three Times a Lady. She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes. Have you seen your mother baby standing in the shadows?
I don't think they got the right composer, you know.
Oh, it's classical music, isn't
well,
it?
yeah, it should have been Beethoven, Ode to Joy. Or, alternatively, Franz Schubert's Unfinished Symphony. It would be much more appropriate.
In my case, it'd be the Minute Waltz.
You got it.
Any time you get your socks off.
Yes, so I've heard. This is the invention of a new musical condom.
I said all that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which, if it bursts...
It plays
warns
music,
you.
yeah.
The Italian inventor, Lino Missio, said when a condom breaks, you need to be warned urgently. He now has spent years perfecting the invention on himself and is this week celebrating with his wife and 14 children. Neil, a story to make you feel at home. I love you.
Yes, this is difficult to credit, but it's true. This is the upcoming Miss Sheep Wales contest.
Is he looking at me or at Angus there?
And the interesting thing is that the sheep, there are 11 million of them in Wales. There are...
Number just
Shame
trips
they
off the
can't
top of your head.
I get a lot of sleepless nights, so I just count the sheep. There's 11 million. 11 million and 4.
Well, that's why you
exact.
brand them, in case you're unfaithful by mistake.
Well, the great thing is
true.
they're going to be judged, as the competition organisers have said, not only on looks, but on personality, too.
A bit like the Labour leadership
It is.
contest.
In keeping with other beauty pageants, the victorious Ms. Sheep Wales 94 will get the opportunity to meet people and travel abroad. Although if she's got any sense, she'll give France a miss. The judges say that they'll be looking for the usual attributes in the winning contender: grooming, poise, character, and as few straggly bits as possible hanging down the back of their legs. Mariella.
The Australians have a word for that.
Yes?
It's called dag. Bit of shit that hangs off the back of a sheep's arm. It's the Australians word. They get a word for anything. Dag.
Amazing. I didn't know he was bilingual, did you?
Astonishing. And don't forget you heard it here first.
Unless they're watching the repeat.
So if you're watching the repeat, you heard it here second. Yes.
But they might not have seen the first show.
Sorry, you did see it here first. After. Mariella, a merry old soul, or a tale of one for you. King-size coal.
Good King Cole. It's about Chancellor Cole, who's about to go to a summit. I can't remember. I think it might be a Greek island, but it's definitely a nice Mediterranean island.
Correct.
And they can't find a bed on the island that's big enough for him because he's 20 stone and 6'6". And so they've now got, I think, 4 weeks to build him some sort of construction so that he can get a good night's sleep and, you know, pour forth his wisdom to the world.
It's the reinforcement of the floors that is going to cause the real problem.
Well, they've got to
Right,
take the
because
roof...
Alan Clark's coming to stay as
I
well.
could be...
It is the preparations for the European Union summit, at which German Chancellor Helmut Kohl has demanded the construction of a special king-size bed in keeping with his political standing in Europe. John Major and Douglas Hurd say they're happy with their accommodation and will take it in turns to go on the top bunk. Ian, a spot of helpful advice for you. If you want trains, live in the city.
It's, there was some man, I can't remember what his name was, who works for British Rail, who was asked why there aren't any suburban services anymore. Not even suburban, more like country services. And he said, look, if you want a train, go and live in the city. Don't hang around in Norfolk expecting a train. Out in the middle of the countryside, by a big platform saying station. We don't have trains there. We have trains from my office to 5 minutes away to another fat idiot's office.
But you wonder if they've got an attitude like that before they've been privatised. You know, how can it get worse?
Oh, they're just rehearsing. It's a rehearsal, Angus.
It is. It is.
What's his name?
It's David McIntosh.
Is it? That's interesting.
Thanks.
Hello, David McIntosh.
Mr. McIntosh justified his comments, saying you have to realise that trains are a luxury. He's clearly not travelled on one recently. And Mr. McIntosh concluded British Rail is not a social services department, although they're clearly doing their best to release nutcases into the community. Which second-class squabbling brings the buffers to the end of round 2, and a quick glance at the information board reveals that both teams are refusing to be prized apart, both Ian and Mariella and Paul and Neil firmly wedded to 8. Time now for the odd one out round, a game which statistically a laboratory chimpanzee would get right once every 4 goes. That's roughly double the frequency of the average panellist. 4 interesting personalities. Which one's the John Ketley? Paul, your figures of fun are Tony Hancock, Peter Sellers, Sir Arthur Bomber Harris, and Nelson Mandela.
Well, Tony Hancock and Peter Sellers once appeared in the same film, a film called Orders is Orders, made in 1955, and Galton Simpson has written...
Did that have Charles Middleton in it, by any chance?
No.
Oh, right.
No, he died in 1949.
When
One of the
he
main reasons why he wasn't in the movie. They were willing to audition him, but nobody had a spade. So... Gordon and Simpson have written for Hancock, and they've also written for Peter Sellers a film called The Wrong Arm of the Law, made in 1963. Nelson Mandela appeared in a film written by Gordon and Simpson that was never released, unfortunately, called Let Me Out. And Bomber Harris is on the phone there, so I think the odd one out is Peter Sellers, because he's the only one who hasn't had a statue put up to him.
Which is...
They put a statue of Tony Hancock out in Birmingham, and the people of Birmingham, somebody said, oh, it shouldn't, you know, he only lived here for the first 2 years of his life, and then he lived in Bournemouth, so he shouldn't put it up here. But they said, well, that's all right, so they did.
We're getting the answer backwards now.
Very complicated, isn't it? I've just noticed that 3 of them are white.
Nothing gets past you, does it?
And Nelson...
I owe this to forensic science.
Nelson Mandela's the only one who's had his photograph taken in front of my shirt.
No wonder he's smiling, he's got his back to it.
Yes, yes, the last 6 words of your original answer were absolutely correct, is that all of them have had statues erected in their honour, or are about to, except for Peter Sellers, whose proposed statue in Balham was turned down. Apparently it wasn't the statue of Sellers itself they objected to, it was the figure of Princess Margaret kneeling in front of him. When the statue of Bomber Harris was unveiled by the Queen Mother, eggs and paint were thrown, and there was a barrage of abusive language. Apparently they wouldn't let us stop at the bookies on the way there. Neil, 4 old friends for you. Sir Bernard Ingham, Lord Parkinson, Lady Olga Maitland, and Woodrow Wyatt, the News of the World's voice of reason.
I mean, this is difficult too, because the same Department of Forensic Science instructs me that 3 of them are of the male species. I think it also true to say that at some time in their past, all 3 of the men have been members of the Labour Party. And Lady Olga Maitland, under Clause 2, Section 5 of the Labour Party Constitution, would never, ever be allowed into the Labour Party, so...
And what is Section 2, Clause 5?
No nutters.
It stops people...
That's the abbreviated version of it.
Absolutely.
They all write columns, too. I mean, just in case that isn't the answer.
You've got a real thing about columns, haven't you? It's because you haven't got a column of your own.
He's got a magazine. You want me to do an Alan Clark, love?
Or at least that's what I've heard.
It's that all of them were once supporters of the Labour Party, but have since all moved to the right, with the exception of Lady Olga Maitland, for whom a move to the right would mean falling off the edge. Woodrow Wyatt, formerly a Labour MP, is now quoted as saying, "If I was not myself, I should like to be Rupert Murdoch." You really have to be not yourself to want to be Rupert Murdoch. Mariella, your 4 heartthrobs are Daniel Day-Lewis, Shane McGowan, formerly of the Pogues, Andy Townsend of Aston Villa, and the Duke of Wellington.
Who is this man?
He's the very sexy heartthrob ex-leader of a group called the Pogues.
Of course he is.
It's a popular beat combo.
Shane McGowan is definitely Irish. This footballer here is wearing a very Irish type of football jersey. It's got a bit of a sort of clover on it.
It's green as well, isn't it?
Shamrock, I beg your pardon, it's green as well, so it's got emerald.
That's always a bit of a clue, isn't it?
The Duke of Wellington, I think, was Irish. Which
He
may
didn't
sound
play for Aston
surprising.
Villa,
Well, he may have.
Is Andy Townsend the wrong one out because he's not Irish?
No, Daniel Day-Lewis is the odd one out because he's not Irish.
Well, I'll give you 1 point for getting sort of in the right
big
area.
deal, very generous. 1 point.
But you haven't got the right guy. It's that all of them act as if they're Irish, though they were born in England, except for the Duke of Wellington, who preferred to see himself as English, even though he was born in Ireland. Once, when called an Irishman, the Duke is alleged to have said, "Being born in a stable does not make one a horse." I think Jesus will be with him on that one. Shane McGowan was born in England and educated at Westminster Public School, but he claims 50% Irish blood, the other 50 being a mix of vodka, whiskey and meth. Daniel Day-Lewis was born in London and became an Irish citizen at the age of 30. He recently denied that he had started to affect his Irishness, although he was wearing a green suit and carrying a pig under his arm at the time. Andy Townsend...
Hang on a minute. Why should the Irish people be carrying a pig under their arm?
It's just one of those things, Paul.
It's called racism, isn't it?
It's just one of those things they do. Go over to Ireland, they're all doing it.
I've never seen anybody doing that in Ireland. Have you ever seen anybody doing that?
Most
I've
of the
been
pigs
there
in the West
several times.
Midlands have an Irishman under their arm.
If there is somebody who's seen
Andy Townsend, if you're
pig
interested...
under their arm.
It's just one of those things, Paul. It's just a little caricature that people paint of certain nationalities, you know, like Scotsmen in kilts or...
Oh, you're right, it is racism.
Yeah.
Look, Kinnock's got a leak on his head.
That's right.
Can't see it.
No, he's
Angus,
not.
now there's a Scottish name.
Yep.
That means he
bizarre.
must be very, very, very mean And he's got a haggis under his arm all the time.
I'm actually...
Got a point on the first count.
I have an English father and a Scottish mother, which means that I'm both stuck up and mean.
And extremely well dressed.
Yes, thank you very much.
Carry on, skirty transvestite. Expect you got a dagger in your sock, have you?
So my mother's Irish, so should I walk around with half a pound of sausages under me?
It's up to you, I think.
I'd go for the full pig, actually.
What are you doing tonight?
I told you already when you were on your knees in my dressing room that I was busy.
If you don't pick those up, you get your comedy card taken away.
That's true.
What can I do?
A pathetic excuse.
I immediately apologise. And
This is the man who's just taken the high moral line on racism.
I never said I was consistent.
Excuse me, are you saying it's immoral to ask me out later?
Yeah, I'd classify that as such.
Excuse me, I think it's
I was merely
charming. I've got a
inquiring.
date. I don't care what he calls me, I've got a date.
Andy
Find
Townsend.
a dating agency. There you go.
Andy Townsend, if you can remember him. Andy
He's the
Townsend.
guy who doesn't walk around with a fig under his arm.
He is the Republic of Ireland football captain, as you may know, but he was actually born in Maidstone, Kent, and only got the chance to play in the Ireland team because of his Irish grandmother. She pulled a hamstring just before the Denmark. And finally, in this round, Ian, 4 fresh-faced youngsters for you. Clive James, Jeremy Paxman, Miriam Margolyes and Malcolm Rifkind, MP.
That's frightening. This question is about University Challenge, which Jeremy Paxman is now going to take over. Jeremy Paxman was at Cambridge. But he never got on the programme himself, and all the others did. Clive James was on University Challenge when he was young. So was Miriam Margolyes, and so was Malcolm Rifkind. Very bright student, apparently. Sad descent.
Malcolm Rifkin's memories of University Challenge are that he got drunk when he was on it and kept pressing the button accidentally. It's very reassuring now that he's Secretary of State for Defence. All of which erudite questioning, halted by the sound of a silent gong, brings an end to this particular challenge, and the state of play is that Ian and Mariella are quietly dropping out with 11, whilst Paul and Neil are very much quids in with 12. And now it's time for our panellists to guess what lies behind the black oblong. For them, of course, that usually means the eyes of a reader's wife. But tonight, the task is in hand to identify the missing words. This week's guest publication, from which none or more headlines may come, is that indispensable journal, Laundry and Cleaning News International. So, Ian and Mariella, you're lying last, so guess first, with Queen Mum's Joy at 400th what?
Win.
Birthday.
I'll give you one for
400
win.
telegram from the Queen.
You're going to give me one for win?
I can even give you a point for win, yes.
But can I possibly have had 2 points?
If you'd said race win, yes, you would have done, because that's the real answer. Next, Liverpool's what biggest in the country?
Biggest laundry.
Liverpool's dirty laundry, certainly the biggest in this country.
Is it population fall?
Sadly it is, yes. Population loss in the 90s, to be precise. Next, Portillo may go what?
Away, I hope.
Nova.
Go for gold.
Go for
To the shops and
May
back.
go.
A woman came into my surgery in constituency a few weeks ago, and I swear
have a backache?
this is true. She started talking about that Mr. Portaloo.
To health. No,
You lose Bottomley, you get Portillo. Another win for the health service.
what must overcome their apathy?
I don't care.
Voters.
It's probably something like laundromats or something, or dry cleaners.
Is the right answer. Obviously a keen fan of Laundry and Cleaning News International.
Why are they apathetic? Well, if you go in with a suit, they just say no.
Can you come back tomorrow?
Oh, I can't.
Well,
Not
let's say
trousers.
Thank you. Paul and Neil, it's your shout. Yogi University offers what?
Places too smarter than the average bear.
There's this party that does yogic elevation.
Yeah, it's
So it could be flying
the
lessons.
natural law party.
Honorary degree for boo-boo.
Degrees in levitation is what it in fact was, with only 5 points in it. Incredibly
Right,
exciting.
here we go.
Come on.
This is the big one, Mariella.
Next, as Alan Clark would say, next.
Does bring a whole new meaning to the phrase, how's your father, doesn't it?
Bottomley demand support for what?
Major.
One pair of families.
Chelsea.
Families. You said the word family.
I said
so you
families.
can have that. The family is what we're after. Next, Brown steps down what?
Brown steps down from Brown House.
It's from
Blair
leadership,
Crown.
isn't it?
Yes, I'll give you 2 for that, because actually the first
Give
name
Blair
to give
free run.
Tony Crown, so it was actually rather more familiar than you were thinking. And finally, with only 2 points in it, so...
Moon in line
virtually
for.
exciting. Moon in line for what?
Eclipse.
For
having a
Builders
lovely
Bottom
time, why
lookalike competition.
It is, in fact, EC membership. It's a rather bizarre answer, according to the Sunday Telegraph, so it's bound to be wrong. All of which ministerial fumblings bring us embarrassingly to the end of the round, not to say the competent, but I think I might do this again. All of which ministerial fumblings bring us embarrassingly to the end of the round, to say nothing of the contest, which seems entirely justified. And a shifty glance downwards at the luminous digits reveals that this week's grumpy old men are Ian and Mariella with 16.
What is your first language, by the way?
Icelandic, oddly enough.
Have another go at it, nobody noticed.
And a shifty glance. A shifty glass is what I had before the show.
Has anyone got a talkative 3-year-old in the audience?
Yes, anyway, this week's grumpy old men are Ian and Mariella with 16, whilst this week's good fellas are Paul and Neil with 18. So, a night in the Savoy for our winners, a night outside the Savoy for our losers. And I leave you with news that in Brixton High Street, the local drug squad are beginning to suspect something. A prize-winning photograph captures the exact moment when a spot bursts on Nicholas Soames' face. And sport. In the first ball of the Test match against New Zealand, there's an awkward moment for Mike Atherton as he realises he's forgotten his bat. Good night.